Hello and welcome to the BA News Show, your weekly news show every week, Friday at 5 p.m. Be there or don't be there, it's up to you. With your host, as always, I'm Rich, and my great friend for many, many years and absolutely colleague on the channel, Tabs. Say hello, Tabs.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, mate. That almost got sentimental there, didn't it?
Oh no, yeah, I was almost in a hole. I was like, where am I going with this? But some stories to get through, some interesting stories. I think we've moved into 2021. News is starting to filter through. There's quite a bit in everything else this week, which suggests that we're going to start to snowball on news items and stuff. But we're going to start this week, as we always do, with what we've been playing. And Tabs, tell us what you've been playing.
Yeah, well, I can kind of cover us both off and I'll let you elaborate, but we've been playing Demon Souls for the most part. So we're actually playing it as I think we said last week, like a concurrent playthrough. So we only play it when we're playing together, and we're doing the PS5 screen share, just so we can see picture in picture, exactly where we are. And suffice to say, I don't know how many of you out there are Demon Souls fans who play the game, or Souls fans generally, but it's been an emotional roller coaster. To give you a little bit of insight, and I'll let Rich pick up where I leave off, but I chose the royalty class. We went in blind. I don't think any of us have done any research.
Nope.
I chose the royalty class. Rich went with Temple Knight. We started off, and I was finding it really difficult to survive, to get through the first level. Rich was actually doing okay. To the point where I think I lashed out a little bit at him because I was stressed out at how badly I was doing. Roles soon reversed because we found out that I can use magic, which has actually turned the game into easy mode now for me. And now we're at a stage where Rich is struggling a bit because he has to go for melee combat. But Rich, why don't we hand over there, mate? Tell us all.
Yes, so we went from you struggling and me doing all right to probably 30 minutes later, a continuous struggle for me to this point. I think we're about 10 hours in. Was it 9 odd hours or something last night when we stopped playing?
I'd say that. Yeah.
I think we're in the level 20s-ish. I mean, it's an unforgiving game. The areas are unforgiving. The enemies are unforgiving. It's definitely not a game that you can just brute, I don't think. Certainly not as where we are now. But yeah, so I'm just struggling a bit, taking a lot of damage. We go to new areas and do struggle. But yeah, we're hoping.
I think the word is, Rich, I think the word is esoteric or arcane. It's because insofar as it doesn't tell you anything, does it?
No.
The levels themselves don't really seem to flow in a very consistent difficulty curve. The NPCs that can help you and benefit you and help you level up, there's no guidance as to where they are or where to find them. It's all left to you to find your own way. And that has a charm to it and, a certain sense of discovery when it's satisfying when you find these things and it's like, oh, wow, this is going to transform my gaming experience. But at the same time, it doesn't hold your hand by any means, and therefore you're left to, rumble along in the wilds. So interesting so far.
Absolutely. So currently we have like a weird scenario where Tabs could probably push on a bit more, but I'm sort of holding us back in terms of our concurrent playthrough. But we're hoping if we can unlock magic for me, that'll help me, but it will also possibly try and even the two of us up. And I think a few levels up are needed for me to get magic open as a Temple Knight. And I think we're going to attempt shortly to cheese a red dragon, either with just 30 minutes of hitting a dragon as it flies above, or standing on like a battlement and firing maybe 100 or 200 arrows at it. So we'll see how that goes.
Unorthodox means, but you know what? It doesn't make any rules or set any rules, does it really? So
no.
We'll take a leaf from its own book. But BArcadians, if you do have an experience with Souls games or Demon Souls specifically, ears are open in the comments for your tips.
Absolutely.
And build suggestions for both royalty and a Temple Knight.
Absolutely. So let's quit the banging on and get on to our first news story. So our first news story this week is CD Projekt Red's public apology. Wow. And this comes from the BBC News. The co-founder for Cyberpunk 2077's developer has released a new video explaining what went wrong with the game. CD Projekt's Marcin Iwinski,
I would say.
Oh, okay. Admitted they underestimated the task of adapting the game for consoles like the PS4 and Xbox One. Gamers reported glitches, including choppy frame rates and screen tearing. Marcin says he's deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up. The game was arguably the most anticipated release of 2020. I think that's massively arguable. But the launch just before Christmas was a disaster. The problems led to Sony and Microsoft removing the game from the online stores, and gamers were offered refunds. Cyberpunk 2077 is set in a fictional Night City, a dystopian future where pollution and crime are rampant and social inequality is the norm. In the video, Marcin explains issues originated from Cyberpunk's huge scope, particularly the high number of custom objects, interacting systems and mechanics, making it a complex game.
So I'll just pick up, mate, give you a rest there. So as this was condensed in one big city, rather than spread over a bigger space, it needed greater hardware capability. So despite working well for high-end PCs, it couldn't be adjusted to older generation consoles such as the PS4 and Xbox One, making in-game streaming difficult. We hit the ground running on PC. While not perfect, it's a version of Cyberpunk we're very proud of. We'll come back to that, won't we, Rich?
We certainly will.
Marcin adds that testing did not show a big part of the issues that gamers experienced. As we got closer to the final release, we saw significant improvements each and every day. He also blames the coronavirus pandemic for creating issues for CD Projekt as they tried to improve performance after launch. A lot of the dynamics we normally take for granted got lost over video calls or emails, and we took that hit too. Marcin added the incredibly hard-working and talented development team should not be blamed for problems, saying the final decision came down to him and the board. Believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen. I assure you that we will do our best to regain your trust. As part of that, he says that they intend to fix the problems and improve the game across platforms. Our ultimate goal is to fix the bugs and crashes, with updates to the game expected to arrive in the coming days and weeks. We treat this entire situation very seriously and are working hard to make it right. So I think before I'll hand over to you, Rich, I mean, suffice to say, first of all, we should applaud that he has come out and made a public apology, put himself up there really, to be shamed because, and obviously created a distance between the ownership of this botched launch, from the developers who have worked hard on it for many years, and it is the leadership team, the board, who are responsible. So applaud that first of all. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I find this very difficult because the line that struck out for me, and I actually spoke to you during the day about this, Tabs, because I was dumbfounded by this comment. It's a version of Cyberpunk we're very proud of. Now, the problem I have with that statement is me and Tabs haven't made this game as an indie developer, which, as we've spoken a number of times on the channel, now we've basically become a Cyberpunk channel in the news. It does feel a bit indie in how unfinished it was, how buggy it is. This is a games developer that has produced some very high quality games that are holding high esteem. The Witcher 3, for instance. To say that it's a game that they're proud of, because even as we know on the PC it doesn't work properly, I just don't see how they can have that standpoint. Now, Tabs did mention to me that, it's quite clear if they say it's a broken game or, we've misled people, then they're basically admitting blame and are going to open themselves up for lawsuits, etc., which obviously they're not going to do. But yeah, I can't believe he could possibly come out with that and not feel a deep regret in just saying that.
Well, that's it for me, mate. I think in a nutshell, whilst I applaud the courage it takes to at least put yourself up on, the chopping block, if you like, and sticking his neck out and providing that distance, as I said, that's a good thing. Because many companies wouldn't even bother doing that. But at the same time, like you said, this apology doesn't really cover the half of it for me. It owns up to some things whilst keeping a lid on other things like, why didn't they release review copies for the PS4 and Xbox One to publications prior to launch? And as you point out there, more glaring issues with the game like the broken AI, and some of the open world promises they'd made in promotional material. What happened there? Why didn't they deliver on that? And that obviously is glossed over with this. We relaunched this game on PC and it's a version of the game we're very proud of. no doubt there's substance there, and there is a good game amongst it all, but there's also a lot there which is arguably a development build with a lot of make-do placeholder elements that we hope will be improved as part of the series of patches. But as I mentioned to you, yes, I think they have to downplay it, and they have to downplay. They'll probably covertly upgrade some of these systems like the AI. I hope they do anyway, without actually recognizing it publicly, because as you mentioned there, that will be basically handing their prosecutors the gift of, that they want to actually beat them legally and actually get some compensation for being misled, which I think they do have a case with.
I would just like to say, I'm sure as a single developer on this game, you can be very proud of the work you did, because ultimately you didn't half-arse it as the person literally coding the game. You will have put your all into it. I'm sure it was passion projects for everyone who worked on this. But ultimately, the project needed more resources, more time, more people on it. It needed a complete rethink in terms of the way that it was done, and that's not the fault of the people, the singular people, coding the game. Absolutely, exactly. That's not who we're saying, are the problems in this instance, and absolutely they should be proud of the work they've done. But as a collective, as a product that the board and CD Projekt Red have produced, it doesn't cut the mustard.
This is it, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to see the company themselves, because obviously if they get punished as a company, and I think there's talk of potentially like 10% of their profits can be fined or whatever, I'm not too sure of the specifics, but if they get kind of crippled as a company financially in consequence of what they've done, well, that's also going to affect the developers, who, as we've pointed out, are likely almost certainly innocents in all of this, if you like. It's all to do with project management and leadership issues. So, they need a consequence for it, and I hope they get shaken, the leadership, at least by these lawsuits, and, there is some sort of consequence. But obviously, we're just going to have to follow it closely and hope that there's a halfway house perhaps there, where it doesn't actually demolish CD Projekt Red in terms of their standing in the games industry, but there's enough consequence there. And maybe we'll even see some changes in the leadership at CD Projekt Red. Perhaps that does need to happen as well.
I think you're quite right. They do need to be held to account for the fact that, I'm going to say a car manufacturer, say Ford, say, I've got this car, it can do 0 to 60 in 1 second. No one's allowed to test drive the car beforehand to prove these claims. They're just marketing videos, but then when everyone gets the car, it's 0 to 60 times 5 seconds. They've got to be held for accountable for the sort of marketing or that kind of scenario. So something needs to be done, but like you say, we don't want to see them like go into obscurity and never to be seen again. So because ultimately there are some very talented people that work there. It's just they need to be managed in a way that performs well enough, I guess, is the way. But anyway, enough banging on about CD Projekt Red, because we seem to do it every week. Let's move on, Tabs.
So up next, we've got Star Wars changing hands. So this comes courtesy of Bloomberg. Ubisoft Entertainment said it will develop a new Star Wars game, indicating a long-time exclusivity agreement for Electronic Arts on the Walt Disney franchise will come to an end. The new Star Wars title is set to be the first not published by EA since Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012. The agreement with EA is scheduled to expire in 2023. In an emailed statement, EA said, we're proud of our long-standing collaboration with Lucasfilm Games, which will continue for years to come. Lucasfilm said in a blog post Wednesday morning that it had a number of projects underway with EA. A representative for Ubisoft didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Ubisoft said only that its games will be set in an open world environment and will be developed by the company's massive entertainment team in Sweden, best known for a series of shooting games called Tom Clancy's The Division. The group is also working on a game based on James Cameron's Avatar movies. So, a bit murky this one. It seems to almost suggest that the license is not going to be renewed exclusively for EA come 2023 if Ubisoft are working on a Star Wars game, which, by the way, it does excite me. Open world environment, Star Wars game, if they can really capitalize on that, could be fantastic. But at the same time, then EA come out with this statement to say they're proud of this long-standing collaboration, which will continue for many years to come. So is that just spin to, again, protect protect their shares, because they don't want to see a massive decrease, which I think they have seen a little bit of decrease, given the, monumental nature of the Star Wars franchise? Is it just that they've got a few games in development, we'll see those come out, and then it'll be up for grabs? Or, what are your thoughts, Rich?
Well, it's really interesting because it states in this that their agreement goes to 2023. Well, that's 2 years away, so that's multiples of years. So years to come, you could imply is 2 years' time. So you could read from that in 2 years' time when it ends. Years to come, that is that point. Ultimately, I think this is a really good thing, whether it's an exclusive for Ubisoft or it's going to be EA and Ubisoft. Competition breeds success or greater success. So that is a really good thing. And also, I'll go out on a limb here. I know there's people that love some of the Star Wars games that were made by EA, but some of them have been appalling. Some of them have been properly appalling, broken games. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if EA are losing their license to produce games. Go.
Smash on, mate. I couldn't say it any better. I think, like you say, that I think it is quite well known that they've got a checkered history with the franchise, and they've not exactly done as much as they could with it. Some games aren't bad, and certainly they've made amends on things like Battlefront and Battlefront 2 after some shaky launches. But yeah, I think, especially Ubisoft, whilst I'm not the biggest fan, like you say, purely based on competition is a good thing. New creative outputs, new creative avenues. And we do know, to be fair to Ubisoft, that they're quite competent when it comes to open world games.
Absolutely.
So if they can kind of apply the same principles, we might have a good game in our hands. Go on.
They have made some really good games. And I have to say, just as a note on Massive Entertainment, we know that the Division franchise of games are really good games. So, if they can take some of the people that have been working on those games, Division 2, then I think this could be a winner. Hopefully, some new things. Be nice to see something in Star Wars using haptic feedback, something to do with the Force, haptic feedback. Yeah, I think there could be good things to come here.
Plenty. But Rich, take us on to the third story today.
Absolutely. So, Indiana Jones returned to Castle Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein. This one comes from Eurogamer. So Bethesda has just teased a new project from Wolfenstein developer Machine Games. And it's an Indiana Jones game. In a short statement released via Twitter, Bethesda described the project as an original story not based on any existing films, or presumably the upcoming 5th Indiana Jones film due to begin shooting soon. We don't know that. A brief teaser trailer which gives a few hints as to what to expect. We see a desk with numerous items belonging to Jones, books on ancient monuments and items, one apparently written by Todd Howard, a college coffee mug, a battered diary, a compass, plane tickets to Rome, and a passport stamped by Bethesda. Logos for Machine Games and the new Lucasfilms Games division pop up, an antique typewriter and camera. Then we see Jones' iconic hat and whip as the start of the series series iconic theme kicks in. Get there in the end. Swedish studio Machine Games has made a name for itself as a creator of Nazi killing games such as Wolfenstein: The New Order and the follow-up to The Old Blood, as well as 2017's Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, and spin-off Youngblood and Cyberpilot. It is a subsidiary of Bethesda and its parent company ZeniMax Media, which of course will soon be in turn be part of Microsoft. Wow, that was a mouthful. I got there in the end. I'm excited. I mean, to be fair, I like all this sort of Indiana Jones sort of world. I love Uncharted, so anything similar to Uncharted in the Indiana Jones world would be a massive hit for me. I'm hoping it won't be a Microsoft exclusive and it will come to the PlayStation. But of course, we know with Microsoft, they tend to release their games on PC as well as Xbox. So there's an opportunity to get it on the PC, potentially, if it is exclusive. So yeah, I think this is really interesting. I don't think this is a way off. I think this is years off, I would say. But it's exciting to get excited for a new game franchise. What do you think, Tabs?
Yeah, this is it. I think the nature of the teaser trailer suggests as well that it's going to be quite a way off. I'm pleased that it's an original story. I think sometimes tying yourself to a film release or whatever can often be a recipe for disaster. So that's good. They've got creative freedom in that respect. The kind of esteem that the franchise is held in, you've got to think the people making this game, the devs on it, Machine Games, they're really going to give it their all because,
Absolutely.
You want to respect the franchise. Hard to say if there's much to take from the clues we've seen. The college coffee mug, plane ticket to Rome, maybe suggests a setting. College coffee mug, I mean, he works as a teacher at a college, so doesn't necessarily suggest a young Indiana Jones, does it? But
just before coming onto the news, I read that something that Todd Howard said in September is not linked to this game. I don't know what he said, something that he alluded to in an interview, but apparently it is not linked to this game.
Interesting, okay. Maybe more on that in future weeks, BArcadians. But yeah, suffice to say, it's a massive franchise. I adore the films. If they can do it justice, great. We want to see more from Bethesda. We want to see a return to form. Certainly some of the produce in recent years. My only concern is, Rich, because of the acquisition of Microsoft, we don't know anything about exclusivity. So could this be just for Xbox Series, consoles, and PC? We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. But since there's a shed load in the everything else, we best crack on with everything else.
Go for it, mate.
And I'll start. So Resident Evil 8 gameplay showcase to take place next week. We're excited for that. I know you're really excited for that, Tabs.
Definitely. The Last of Us TV show news is coming soon enough, we've heard. So keep your ear to the ground on that.
Absolutely. Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury Showcase went live. I think it was yesterday. Was that, Tabs?
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday, when we're filming this anyway. And that has got a now release date of February the 12th.
Yep, looks cool. I think it'd be worth a go. Multiplayer and this new element as well in Bowser's Fury. Star Wars Fallen Order updated for next gen. So again, good to see a facelift on that. I really enjoyed that game, and it's a difficult game in parts. It's not too far away from a Souls game, so the added FPS and performance will be appreciated. Absolutely.
More further hints. Ghost of Tsushima sequel is in the works with new job listings, so I'm excited for that.
And then finally, Pokemon Snap release date trailer is out now, I think just before we started filming on Thursday. And that's due to release on April 30th. So, as Richard said, I think there's a bit of a cascade here of news, exciting news stories, and hopefully it's the start of things to come in 2021. Fingers crossed for a Nintendo Direct soon, eh, Rich?
Absolutely. I tell you what, we have missed off of everything else, which we mentioned before we started filming, but I forgot to put it. Hogwarts Legacy has been delayed till 2022, which is a big shame because we were excited for that. But I did say to Tabs, I don't think this was nailed on for this year anyway. So, yeah, it's bad, but I think I'd rather, at this junction where we are with games, I'd much rather games take longer and we have fewer of them, but they're properly cooked in the oven at this point.
Well, how long have we been waiting as well? I mean, all the films are out, we've waited long enough. So Let's just wait a bit longer and hope that they can absolutely nail it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And we are all working through a global pandemic at the moment, and that has to have a knock-on effect with everything in everybody's lives. So anyway, that is it for this week's news. Another bumper show for you. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please get in the comments down below. We'd love to discuss any of the news stories with you. And obviously, as we've previously mentioned, if you have any idea what we're supposed to be doing in Demon's Souls, that would be good to know. If you have enjoyed the news, definitely give it a like. It really helps us. And if you're new here, do subscribe and become a BArcadian today. But I think that's all we've got time for this week on the news. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.